Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Pokemon Let's Go Eevee are unlike any Pokemon games we have seen before. That paired with the little information that we have about the games has caused a lot of misinformation to spread quickly throughout the community. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, share it with your friends, and comment down below if you learned something. But I want to get straight into the list with number 1, that people say this is not a main series Pokemon game. Well, I'm just going to have the developers kind of disprove this one for me.
任天堂スイッチ初のポケットモンスターシリーズの本編
And the second is the new main series Pokemon RPG for Nintendo Switch. And as Mr. Masuda just demonstrated, these first main series Pokemon RPGs on Nintendo Switch will be taking full advantage of the functionality in the Joy-Con, which means you can flick the Joy-Con to throw out Pokeballs and also feel the movement of the Pokeball in your hand through the rumble.
本日ポケットモンスターシリーズの最新作ポケットモンスターレッツゴーピカチュウとポケットモンスターレッツゴーイーブイを発表します
I'm happy to announce the newest titles in the mainline series of Pokemon RPGs, Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Pokemon Let's Go Eevee. And it's my belief that this more intuitive gameplay really appealed to a much wider range of players of variety of ages from around the world and allowed them to be able to enjoy the game. And I wanted to bring the fun of this more intuitive, as well as widely accepted and popular Pokemon catching gameplay right back to the Pokemon main series RPGs. So I decided to work on Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee as the director.
Now, I find it strange that with so many representatives, including the CEO of Pokemon, explicitly stating that the 2018 game is considered main series, that people are still in denial about it. That only because of the removal of wild Pokemon battlings, encounters are still there, regional progression is still in there, trainer battles are still in there, gym leaders are still in there, every other feature about a main series game is intact, but because one thing is slightly changed, people just refuse to accept it as a main game, even though that really wouldn't make it a spin-off just by changing wild Pokemon battles. Also ignoring that wild Pokemon battles have kind of become trivial in themselves in modern Pokemon games. That pretty much the second you can, you stock up on repels and you get out of there as fast as possible. Also, the quick ball is effectively what we're doing. We're just instantly throwing a Pokeball to catch a Pokemon, and even then, the actual battling a Pokemon is kind of strange because it's mostly just for EVs in the late game and isn't really that utilized in the mid game. So if you're catching a Pokemon, you're catching a Pokemon, and that seems to be what is going on here. Number 2. Having Mew behind a $50 paywall is unfair and makes it impossible for some people to complete the Pokedex. Well, this is just flat out false because mythical Pokemon are not required for completing the Pokedex, mostly because they're already exclusive to begin with, so Mew really isn't any different. That mythical Pokemon releases are either delayed, they run for very short amounts of time, they're just not accessible in the game naturally, and because of that, they are not required to complete the Pokedex, so it's really just a personal thing. Also, when you think about it, there's been games where it's been impossible to complete the Pokedex if you include mythical Pokemon, such as Diamond and Pearl. The Azure Flute event was never released, so therefore it was impossible to get an Arceus in the 4th generation. Even then, if you don't buy a Pokeball Plus, you will still have an opportunity to get Mew. You just have to work for it. Because the thing is, the Pokeball Plus has incredible value behind it. For starters, it's a Pokemon Go Plus, so that's $35 right there. It also functions as a controller, so it has some value of a Joy-Con. It's a very useful thing. It'll be supported in future Pokemon games, and it also functions like a Pokewalker, so it has well over $50 in value, which means almost every person getting the Pokeball Plus, they are not getting it for Mew. Almost no one is actually going, wow, I've paid $50 to get Mew. Everyone's going, wow, this Pokeball Plus is an incredible value, and now I get a Mew with it, that's just great. So what this means is that a lot of people, they're not going to want the Mew, or they're not going to see Mew as the biggest deal. Personally, for me, when it comes to a lot of other Pokemon events, I don't hold them in high regard, and I don't put them as this high priority, desirable thing. Sometimes oh, that's really cool, that's a neat event. But if I end up with it, I'm willing to trade it away if I am receiving good Pokemon in return. So the same thing could happen with Mew, that if you have the perfect, shiny, competitive Pokemon, that might be worth a Mew to some people. Or if you want to give up multiple competitive Pokemon, say, hey, here's 6 competitive Pokemon, here is a team that is ready to go for battling. If you think that Mew is that valuable, you can trade it for it, and boom, that is how you can receive a Mew. So you do have to do a little bit of extra work, but the Pokeball Plus is not a paywall for Mew or anything like that, and it's not going to be impossible to get Mew if you do not purchase it as well. Those are just the facts. Number 3, that this is just a kids game meant for casual players and only Pokemon Go fans. I'm just gonna let Masuda answer this one.
So these games really combine the broad appeal of Pokemon Go with the functionality offered by Nintendo Switch. They provide an easy to pick up and play gameplay experience for players who are new to our Pokemon RPGs, while also providing a fresh experience for longtime fans of the series. So now in 2018, when we had the goal of creating a new Pokemon RPG that can really be enjoyed by anyone, we felt that these would be the most appropriate games to base our new title on. And I believe that not only have we managed to make these titles great entry games for those who are new to the Pokemon RPG series, but at the same time, really provide a new and fresh experience that longtime fans of the series will enjoy.
So as we always do with the Pokemon games, we really want everyone around the world to really enjoy these games. Up until now, we've developed them on handheld systems, but this time around, of course, it's on Nintendo Switch, which we envision people are going to be playing in their living room. So we had another take on Pokemon in general of, what would that look like, and what would a Pokemon for everyone be?
And there it is, the director of the games pretty much saying that despite its appearance, Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee are for all Pokemon players. It doesn't matter if you're trying to expand by getting in Pokemon Go players or a younger, more casual audience. You can tell in the way that the game is designed that it captures the spirit of Pokemon, that this is for the true Pokemon fans. And that's also like from what we see with the gameplay, what we see with the trailer and everything about that it has a very nostalgic feeling. It brings us back to Kanto in a really classic way, that the old school players are going to be very happy with this. And the thing is, Pokemon games, they're over 20 years old right now. So that means the people that grew up with it, they have kids. So effectively, it's going to be the same Pokemon experience, but now it's more family-oriented. I don't really see how that's a bad thing, while also keeping a lot of the core features of Pokemon in place. So yeah, it's not massively Pokemon Go focused, and just because we remove wild Pokemon battles, which have been trivialized anyways, doesn't mean that it's only for casual players, and not to mention EVs. That there's going to be more accessible EV training, which objectively makes it that's going to be a more competitive game. That making the competitive elements more successful is going to raise the skill cap, and it's going to introduce more players on a higher level than we have seen in previous Pokemon games, and that's just kind of way that the mechanics integrate with it. And that's also going off what we saw with Pokemon Sun and Moon, that over the last couple generations, ever since Pokemon Black and White, X and Y buffed the Destiny Knot, made breeding even easier. Pokemon Sun and Moon gave a lot of accessibility to competitive play, made breeding even easier. So because of all that, the features have been just adding up and really heightening the overall, the average skill level of players, and Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu, despite being seen as a casual game, are actually going to make the games more competitive as a franchise. Number 4, that you have to use grass or water type Pokemon against Brock, therefore the game is the ultimate hand-holding experience and it's going to be worse than Pokemon Sun and Moon. Well, again, this is just completely false because all you have to do is read the text. That people, they see one thing, they just kind of freak out over it, and then they throw out all common sense, and they don't even consider what's actually happening. For starters, this is not going to happen for every gym inside the games. So that's another thing that people are kind of confused about, that they see that happening for just Brock's gym, and it's kind of stated that this is for Pewter City and not every single gym out there. So they're thinking oh, I'm forced to bring a type advantage to every gym. No, that's not the case. And even then, all you have to do is present the Pokemon. So the worst case scenario is that all this does is make you go out and catch more Pokemon. That all this does is encourage you to play the game, maybe backtrack a bit, much like you see in the older Pokemon games, experience the world, and then you're free to do whatever you want. So all you have to do is simply go to Viridian Forest, catch an Oddish or a Bulbasaur, which you can see in the grass. So if you desperately need a grass-type Pokemon that bad, you just walk towards one, you catch it, you show it to the Pokemon League official, and then you don't use it against Brock. You can keep the game as hard as you want. People are also saying that, double kick on Pikachu means that they're pretty much just handing us a free Brock. If you choose it to be that way, you could also just not have Pikachu learn double kick. You can build your team how you used to in the old days. Just catch a Butterfree, have it learn Confusion, and then use that against Brock. You are not being forced in any way to use a grass or water type Pokemon to have an advantage against Brock. Sure, you have to present it, but that's just like every other Pokemon game ever. You have to clear out Team Rocket before you can face certain gyms. You have to do a little bit of a mini task until you can actually progress through the game. That Pokemon games have always been like this, so again, it's just needless, invalid hate against Pokemon Let's Go to take one thing and then misrepresent it until it's actually just completely untrue. Now, another complaint that people are still holding on to is no online battling inside of Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. Well, at the E3 demo, this was completely disproven, as well as interviews shortly after we had the announcement of Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu. Because going off of like some of the interviews and like some of the press release stuff, one of the reports was mistranslated and said that there'd be no online battling. No, there's just not going to be any battle spot. However, removing battle spot still doesn't make this the most casual game ever. It actually promotes community. That instead of just going onto a random matchmaking system and getting paired up randomly, you actually have to seek out communities. You have to seek out people to battle, which really brings us back to the old days of Pokemon. You can't say that Generation 5, Generation 4 were casual Pokemon games because there was no battle spot, that the battle spot was introduced, features are introduced. So there's just new things that are being introduced in Pokemon and new features that are being played around with. Maybe we're going to see the battle spot return in the 8th generation, maybe we're going to see a different reworking of how the competitive system works. So just because there's change doesn't immediately mean the worst case scenario, because you can still battle online. As for no Wonder Trade, actually, I feel like that's a more not casual feature, because with the Wonder Trade, you can just go early on in the game, Wonder Trade a lot, get stronger Pokemon, and then that's going to push you through the game, especially if you get hacked Pokemon. That's why I'm actually really happy to not see the Wonder Trade in Pokemon anymore, because all it is a massive hacking outlet. You see all these streams and all these videos on YouTube that's just like Wonder Trade shiny hacked Pokemon giveaway or competitive Pokemon giveaway on the Wonder Trade, when really all it is a hacking vessel. So pretty much kids and a lot of newer players have been spoiled. So while a good idea in theory, it also removed from the community aspect of Pokemon, because now what people do is they Wonder Trade all day hoping to get a passable breedject that they can use to then like chain breed or at least try to get something competitive going for themselves instead of actually engaging with communities, because again, it's just a random stranger encounter that might lead to something. And then also what the community has done to the games with hacking, Wonder Trade overall just degrades the game instead of pulls it up. So I'm happy that it's gone, because now it's going to be about community building and individual strength, which has really been lost in the recent Pokemon games. So those were some of the biggest complaints I've seen about Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Pokemon Let's Go Eevee, but as you can see, the negativity is completely invalid, and that was the purpose of this video, using facts to dispel the misinformation and then bring positivity to one of the greatest Pokemon experiences that we have ever seen from Game Freak. So if you guys enjoyed the video, hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching, and share this video for a better Pokemon